Okay, thank you very much. Yasushi Kusume is a typical Swedish name, obviously. So thank you very much for invitations. I'm a pleasure to talk today, and there's great speakers. I learned the restaurant can ask customers to pour their own water. It's not a bad idea. The furniture company asks customers to build their own furniture. So that's technically, everybody make a joke about it, right? So first of all, let me describe myself and then a little bit of the role I have in IKEA, and let me go through my story today. First of all, my background, well, I am a designer. I've been educated as a product designer. I'm a designer. I've been in business for close to 30 years. And before somebody asked me a question, no, I didn't start from 15 years old. I just look younger than I am. The longest part of my career is I was in the Philips in Netherlands. And then after that, I was in Electrolux in Sweden. And I joined IKEA about 1st of September last year, so about a year and 1 month by now. My role in IKEA is I've been asked to start up new activities and organization to create a new business opportunity for IKEA, which means my focus is not making new furniture, selling to the shops which you usually come and buy our products. So our focus is we're going to make disruptive innovation in a completely new business area. So that's my role. And I just started, so I'm just building up the group. I'm installing the process method tools, and I have done 3 projects last year. Last year, I said last year because IKEA's financial year is from September to August. So I just finished last year, okay, just before you confuse. All right, so innovation is a hard thing. I've been doing innovation, probably the first innovation project I did in previous company is 1992 or 3. And since then, I've done many of the different innovation projects through the different companies. And if any of you said, oh, innovation is a simple thing to do, then I'd like to learn from you. It's always a struggle. We learn something new, and we try to do something different. I actually made the title 7 Essentials for Successful Innovation. It doesn't mean these 7 essentials. Let's say probably if you ask me tomorrow, I would say, well, there's another 12 of them. So I just wanted to highlight 7 of them because I feel like I'm just having my peers here just to share my thinking with you, and it would be helpful if you can give me your feedback maybe in the lunchtime or so, okay? So before I start, I think I just want to start what is innovation. And yesterday's discussion, one of the gentlemen behind there also said, let's separate the topics of incremental and disruptive. And I think that is one of the always a challenge of the innovation topics like this, because innovation is everywhere. You do innovate in the small things to big things and everywhere in your daily life. So what I'm going to talk about is 2 different things. One is incremental innovation, and one is disruptive innovation. Like I said, my role is making disruptive innovation, so I'm not going to talk about incremental innovation today, okay? The definition I use is from this book you probably have read, The Innovator's Dilemma. And disruptive innovation means a very different value proposition. Now, we have all those designers and marketeers here. The value proposition, you know the word value proposition, means your claim to your customers, why customers should buy your claim, your offer in the market instead of other people's offer. So what's the uniqueness to the market? So that's a value proposition. So for instance, and I realized today we have a Unilever people, so I'm probably going to challenge some people who's in the professionals. I never worked for the toilet paper industry, so I'll just make it up something, which I thought is interesting. Okay, if you go to toilet paper, you try to buy toilet paper. The toilet paper set is soft, ultra soft, super soft, because soft is a value proposition. And when I said the value proposition has to be differentiated from other competitors, usually every category has category value proposition, right? Every toilet paper says soft. And you're competing how soft you are, because value proposition toilet paper is soft. Nobody says it's hard, right? And if you're in a category in the marketing, there's always category code. When I was in the Philips, there's hair dryers, and hair dryers is category code of the purple color. Is it true? I don't know, but that's somehow we believe. So if you see my shirt color, you think about hair dryers, of course. So what's a category code in the toilet paper? It's interesting because you see all those animals, right? Why? It's a good question to Unilever people, obviously. I don't know why, but probably some kind of association with the softness and cuteness and things like that. Just only one news is none of these animals use toilet paper, so you can't ask them. And the problem with toilet paper is you don't do so much of test drive, like in the car industry, except one shopping place in Netherlands. You can go to the toilet and you can test all those different toilet paper before you buy. But this is a rare case, right? So what you actually confront usually is this situation. You go to the shelf. Shelf is full of offer, and then everybody shouting to you the category value proposition of the softness. You can make it even softer. That is incremental innovation. Once Steve Jobs said, if you want to date a girl and you know your rival is sending her 10 roses, if you try to send 15 roses, you're defeating the purpose. That's what he said. You try to understand what the girl wants to have. Sending 15 roses or 100 roses is incremental innovation. The rose is the starting point. You try to do better in the framework. Disruptive innovation is try to find out something better or something different. Okay? So what is a disruptive innovation in a toilet paper, which I can't really come up with a good one, except this one I found in the CNN, which is a dash button from Amazon. So when you're in a situation in the toilet paper run out, like this picture, you can press the dash button. And Amazon started to do a better delivery system, which is probably you can wait for 2 hours. You get your toilet paper in your toilet. Exactly. And then disruptive innovation is the farther go with the Amazon. Obviously, they're going to do this next. So in maybe 5 minutes later, you can get the toilet paper. Right. Now, this is not the good example of disruptive innovation. Everybody talk about the Dyson, which I love Dyson as well, as a good example of the market success. So Dyson started to sell this vacuum cleaner quite a long time ago. First, the left one from you, which is, if I'm not making a mistake, this is the first one I saw in the market. It was probably 80s. I was product designer, purely designing the products, and I thought, this is a fucking cool vacuum cleaner, which cost like 2,000 or 3,000 euro in that time, right? What they did is they created a completely new value proposition, which is the continuous suction power, which is the value proposition. And disruptive innovation, sometimes you do worse of some of the value proposition, current value proposition. For instance, the Dyson is very noisy. So noise area, they decided to not compete, but they have another type of the interesting values. So that's a disruptive innovation. There's a different character on those two. Incremental innovation is more predictable because you try to make the roses 5, 10, 20, 15 in the same price, or you want to have a more colorful. You can kind of plan how to do that. Versus the disruptive innovation is unpredictable and random. In other words, if you hit, it's very big, and you have probably seen this power law diagrams. So if you go like a publishing industries, it's probably like, I don't know exactly the statistics, about 70, 80% of the sales of the book being done probably by 5 to 10% of the book in the world. It's majority of book is never sold more than 3,000 copies, right? So if you be in the left side of that diagrams, then you make big money. And there's a lot of long tails, which is the Chris Anderson's book is talking about. So 7 essentials. I'm just go one by one. It's not so many of the examples I have, so just good in getting to the point. Set the horizon as a first. So when we talk about future for your own company, now I'm just asking you to put into your own area of the business or professions. When I say the future, what is the future for you, right? And this is a diagram from the Long Now Foundation. I don't know if you know these foundations, who are actually promoting slow and better quality topics compared to the fast and cheaper things. And they're building this 10,000 years clock, which is the left side of the picture you have, right? Interesting things is every company, even like a human beings, there's a limitation of a human being to think about the future, because your life is, the science of nature actually announced like 115 years old is probably 125 years, is a biological limitation of human beings' age. And these days becomes like 80 to 90 years old, people's average age. And then that is kind of a limitation you have for you to think about future. And the same as, I don't know, you discussed this in your own company, but if the marketeers stay in one job for 3 years, how hell that person is going to think about more than 3 years, right? This is always the case. But question is, what is length of the year you actually use for your own company? And there's nothing right or wrong of it. I found the interesting thing is the 10,000 years clock on the left side is being sponsored by Amazon to make. And Amazon launched in 1994. One of the innovation concept project I did in 1995 in another company, and that was a moment of time if you just think about it. Internet was the big things. And I had a debate with my colleague, does people start to download music digitally? And amazingly, that moment of time, 50% of people said, no. People will never give up having this silver disc, because otherwise you don't feel like you have something in your hand. Now, after 20 years, who actually buys CDs? Right? So that is a moment of time Amazon been launched. And as you know, Amazon didn't make money for a long, long time, probably 8 years, 9 years. I remember my colleagues told me that, Amazon has never been managed, and that's fraud, the moment of time. So Amazon has starting time frame for them to make decisions. I will not disagree with what you said about speed. Speed is very important, but speed is relative terms. What is the speed for you is your decisions to make. Only things I'm just like to suggest is just try to think about different time frame and separately, because it's the same as incremental disruptive innovation. We talk about things in minestrone soup. We put together different things in the same time. We have to separate topics. So one way, I'm not suggesting you should use this McKinsey's the framework. I'm just using as one example. So this one's suggesting Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3, right? And Horizon 2 is like a new business areas. By the way, disruptive incremental innovation can happen every horizon. Sometimes people interpret disruptive innovation as a long term. It's not. You can do disruptive innovation for tomorrow, right? So Horizon 1 is your own business. Horizon 2 is something you're challenging for a new business. Horizon 3 is much farther down. How do you want to use Horizon 3? Probably some company use it to direct people into that direction, or try to prepare to understand what kind of competence you need for the future, right? But just to try to put things in a different bucket when you have a conversation of it. So my recommendation is to make your own clock. And I use the analogy of the sun clock, because you need a sun. So you need a clock, which is your company clock, and you need a sun to tell the time for you, right? So that's the second point, be informed. Sun is these three areas which we actually doing the research in IKEA as well. One is world conditions. Most of the cases, probably your company called macro trend. So macro trend is the urbanization, so people start living in the city, 70–80% of people start in the city, aging society, growing middle class, internet connected. So there's many issues, not only societal issues or people issues, but there's politics, technologies, environmental issues. There's many different types of issues. I call that as a world condition. This is a potential condition people are going to live in the future. Just bad news for you, I work for 3 companies so far. Everybody use same macro trend. Everybody thinks that is opportunity area. So if you think growing middle class is an interesting area, just let you know, everybody thinks it's an interesting area to go. Right. Second area we collect the data is emerging values. Emerging values is something we try to understand what's the weak signals happening in the market. For instance, the example from the restaurants yesterday is some new things happening. So what we do is we call lifestyle trend, which try to scan in a different type of industrial areas, try to understand the new things happening. And when those new things happening means, yesterday we saw this Roger curve of the early adopters, try to understand what kind of things people start to look for. So we try to understand what kind of new needs is there. So that we call emerging values. And then obviously we try to understand human values, human needs, which is like people need identity, people need creativities, and those things we try to understand. The difference between incremental innovation and disruptive innovation, from my point of view, is incremental innovation is useful to understand current pain points and needs of the people. So you can resolve that things. For disruptive innovation, we try to go deeper than that, try to understand deep motivation of the people. To do that, you need certain technique when you do research, like a laddering technique. You need to go down to the deep motivation of people. That's what we try to do. So you have to inform yourself on those 3 areas. That's my recommendation. Then third point, eat elephant one bite at a time. Now, I'm sure you've been to many of the ideation sessions, brainstorming sessions. A magical number of the days is 3 days. Why? It's because 1 day is too short and 5 days nobody comes. So people pick 3 days, right? And then first day you go to the ideation sessions and you're going to be bombarded with all those different datas. There's a person coming from consumer market intelligence. There's somebody coming from the service area of the group, somebody coming from the market or sales, Whole day you're going to be bombarded with all those different informations. And the next day, facilitator says, so now we're going to do ideations, bases all those things you have heard. What happens? Everybody forget everything about it. And you start to talk about your own self. So you try to solve your own problems in there. That always happens. Therefore, what we do is we cut out the information. We don't give all this information to people. We actually cut information in the relevance area of the people. And I actually cut usually on the context. So context of people, activity, space, and time. And we create a story and we try to resolve it. I don't want to call it persona because it's not persona, but it's kind of person-based. So we have something we can relate to and can solve it. Don't try to give all information to people because people just forget about it. 4, be imaginative, and which is probably the most important part of the story. So I said you should collect those data on the 3 areas. I don't think we try to collect those data to predict what's going to happen in the future. What we try to do is we try to create some kind of inspirational information. And what we wanted to do is we try to understand what could be the future of the people's hope and dream. And I don't know if you have read this book. It's talking about the today's made not only for their past, but based on the future, and which is actually quite interesting. Yesterday we saw the teen tech things as well. So if you think about yourself, the today's based on what you want to do in the future as well. If the children want to be astronaut, or children want to be a scientist, today's of the children is made on that dream, obviously. So what we try to do is we try to understand what's kind of hope and dream of the people of the future, because I believe innovation work means you take responsibility of the future. We are shaping the future. We are not predicting the future. That's what I believe, what we are doing. So what we try to create is a memory of the future, which is David Ingvar is a very famous neuroscience scientist in Sweden. And what he actually said that the people have problems to understand what potentially the future is. So what you can do is creating something tangible for the people to understand of it. And you probably have, I'm just using Steve Jobs quote again, but Steve Jobs says a number of times you don't do market research because people don't understand it. People don't understand it unless you show to the persons, obviously. So like I said, I believe shaping the future. One of the reasons why I joined IKEA is because IKEA is a very influential company through the lifestyle of the people. So I believe I can influence the world through the IKEA. So don't try to predict or forecast the future. So what we make is, in the process, we create many what-if scenarios. This is one of the example from Justin yesterday. I don't know if he's still here. Is creating many of the different type of concept. That's what we do as well. We make thousands of a concept, and we filter down to understand what is the right type of gene of people. Then listen, learn, respond. Same topics is Daniel Gilbert says that we fail to recognize our future selves, won't see the world the way we see it now. I don't know if you have read the book called Stumbling Happiness. Anybody read? So there's many of the neuroscience psychological books talking about there's a limitation that people think about the future. Because people tend to ignore the details you cannot fulfill in the future. You borrow things from the today, and based on the people don't believe nothing's going to change from today to the future. So one of the important things is how you're going to manage to show the future for the people. And one way is, have you seen yesterday, the prototyping or rendering, creating film. But if you come into some of the new ideas, we tend to create some kind of cartoonish animations. So that's the way we try to show the future. That is very important to find out what's the right way for you to show the future for the people, so they can react on it. Other things important, I don't know if you have heard the heuristic questions. Have you heard the word heuristic? No. So heuristic question is when you ask people the difficult questions. For instance, if I ask you, are you happy? That's very vague, difficult question. So what people usually do is you just replace that question to something else. That's called heuristic, right? And some, from one of the book, they talk about German professor did the test with their students, and they asked two questions. He asked two questions. One is, how many times have you dated last couple of months, and are you happy? And one set of the group, he asked, are you happy, and how many times you have a date? Other set of the group, how many times you have a date, and are you happy? What do you think happens? The person, the group being asked how many times you have a date and happy, the number of the dates correspond to the happiness, because people use the date question as a heuristic question, right? First group, everybody use different type of heuristic questions by themselves. And one of the good example, you probably have done NPS in your company as well, Net Promoter Scores. So Net Promoter Score is recommending to ask, do you recommend my brand to your colleagues and friends, instead of how valuable is our brand to you, right? That's what they recommend to do, among other recommendations. And therefore, if you started to get the survey these days from hotel to the airline, one of the questions they ask is, do you recommend us to your friend, and blah, blah, blah. Other things the book is actually talking about is don't ask too many questions, but everybody's still asking lots of questions. They just add another question into it, but anyway. So what is the right question for you to ask when you're evaluating the concept? And it was quite interesting yesterday to see using the cloud fundings as well. In a way, it's just also another way to do it, which I never thought about it, so maybe I'm going to think about that. We also try to understand what is the right questions to ask, and we are testing at the moment in time. A year time or 2 years time, I can give you the best example from us. And then last point is what we try to do in our innovation process. We try to integrate this evaluation period through the project we do. So it doesn't mean it's one period of time you do the test and we see the result and we're going to go on. We actually try to do it like a listen, learn, respond. That's what we call. Try to understand something and we try to come back and we try to come back again. So we try to make the process, which is every time we can drop different type of things into this system we created, which is based on the online testing system. So listen, learn, respond. Bring the future in a tangible way. This could be experience model, a prototype to some of the cartoon. Ask the right question, and to avoid people making heuristic questions, embed it into your daily routine. Last two, danger, don't mix. And last two is probably one of the big issues. We have heard many times people talking about corporate environment innovations. You need to go through all the signage and stamps and all things, which just makes it so difficult. I cannot agree more. The problem is any of the company who already exists for a long time means they have a successful business. And the company becomes operationally excellent on the business. And anything operationally excellent way of working is completely go against innovation work. Period. And I'm suffering. I suffered last 2 times in different company, and I'm still suffering in company like this. Because people work on operation, or people only know operation, even don't realize they're using operational way of thinking. It's almost like you're wearing glasses, but you don't see it, glasses anymore. So this is the most difficult point for anybody to go through it. If you have any solution, let me know. So innovation, operation, excellence activity require different contexts. You just need to use different contexts to make decisions. And we talked about yesterday also fail fast. I agree. To fail, you need to try something. And almost you cannot make one step before. Because to fail, you need to make a step. But which step you're going to make? Then you start to have all the debates and all the discussions, which one you're going to do. Last point, seize any potential opportunities. Have you read this book, Black Swan? It is a good book, rather depressing, because it's just telling you cannot learn from best case or anything, right? Which is probably true. So what we also try, I'm trying to encourage company to try, let's try. Before we start to have all the conversations, let's try everything we can think of. However, this is quite interesting one. Gary Klein's talking about this methodology called Pre-Mortem, which is he's actually suggesting to use your own group of people who actually know about concept. And just imagine your concept is completely, utterly failure, disaster. And just think about why you think that's a disaster happens. Which is kind of it, try to take the barrier of, because if you work on your project and the concept, you believe it's going to be success. Unless you believe it's success, you don't work on it. But just to try to take out the psychological barrier to think about what can be the potential failures, which gives the higher quality of the work you do. Okay? So improve quality and try anything that looks like an opportunity. Now, after this, I wish I can show you, here we are, some of the innovation I made in IKEA. What do you think? I don't have anything to show you because I just started a year ago. So if you invite me in a year time or 2 years time, I probably started to show you something we have tried. And we probably surprise you with the things which is completely outside of what you think as the current IKEA is. Besides that, I just tried to give you a little hint, where can I start if it's necessary for you to think about that. I started also the new group now. So what we are looking for is in a T-shape, broad people. You probably have heard this T-shaped people, which is on top is a broad sense of the people, and one is more expert in the depths. So I'm looking for the broad people if you're interested in the new challenge. I have lots of opening in my company now, so you can come to us. And also, I agree with the person from Johnson & Johnson. We try to look for the collaboration with a company. If you're interested to collaborate with a company, I'm looking for some of the conversation to have. And if you need to start your own innovation areas and you need to look for the broad people, obviously the best part for you to think about is a design. And I'm coming from design as a background, and design is one of the design thinking, like we talk about, is the educations in the broad sense as well. So if you have your own design group, look into your own design group. Maybe that's where you can find the people who is actually capable to do the broad sense of the innovation. And if you need to educate, small advertising from myself is the 2 books. There are 2 common things in 2 books. It's high quality and same author, which is me. And if you wanted to know how to build your own good design department, the left book, Brand Romance, is about how you're going to build your good design team. And the right one is just a brand new book coming out. So Max has a book, Design Knowledge is a new book. It's just coming out, so maybe it's not ready there yet, but it's about creation of design knowledge. So that's from me. Thank you very much.